New Jersey's Governor Christie, he's facing allegations of creating traffic jams in New Jersey in order to punish a Democrat mayor. Look at the front page of the Washington Post. Scandal engulfing Christie. Incident threatens New Jersey governor's image. The cover of the New York Times. Christie faces scandal on traffic jam. Kayleigh McEnany is here this morning. All right, Kayleigh, the basic story is there was a whopping great big traffic jam at the George Washington Bridge. Aides to Governor Christie supposedly suggested that they create this traffic jam to annoy and upset the Fort Lee mayor, who was not a Christie supporter. Okay, that's the background. If that's the case, and the email suggests that is the case, that's a disgrace.
It's an absolute disgrace. And, you know, I read that 4 ambulances were stopped from getting through to emergencies. One 91-year-old woman, ambulance delayed, and she actually ended up dying of a heart attack. So it's an absolute disgrace.
Now, Christie says, he's going to have a press conference in about 45 minutes, by the way. Yeah. He says he didn't know anything about this.
I have a very hard time believing that. It strikes me as Obama not knowing about Benghazi being a terrorist attack. You know, that's the claim that they always put out there. I didn't know about this. Maybe he didn't. But what I will say is this fits into an overarching narrative we've seen of Christie where conservative voters cannot trust him.
You don't like him, do you?
I'm not a big Christie fan.
You are a conservative. You're a young conservative voter. You don't like the guy.
I don't, because you can't trust him. You can't trust him at all, Stuart. You think back to the RNC where he was supposed to give a speech on behalf of Governor Romney, but it was all about himself. And then you think back to hugging Obama just weeks before the election, his refusal to campaign for Ken Cuccinelli. This is a guy who hasn't been loyal to my party.
All right, let me put this to both of you for a second. Do you not think that maybe the rest of the country doesn't think much to a traffic jam on the George Washington Bridge and doesn't care, and would love to see a guy in the White House who kicks his enemies, who beats them up instead of apologizing to them? Tough guys might be popular, no?
Tough guys might be popular, but likability is so important. I think the bully act gets very old very quickly. And so I think likability is so important. We need someone like Obama, who was very likable, or like Reagan, who could sell conservatism in a likable fashion to people who were not conservative. That's what we need.
Even in boxing, they have rules, right? The Marquis de Queensberry rules. You know, no punching below the belt, no rabbit punches. That might have started in England. So the bottom line is, you know, yeah, we want someone who's tough. There's no doubt about it. But we also, I think American public is tired of the same sort of underhanded stuff. And, you know, it might seem like we're making a mountain out of a molehill, but it dovetails into all of the other stories of bullying by Christie.
Are you prepared to write him off as now a national Republican candidate? You do that?
I'm not prepared to write him off because I think he's done some brilliant things that the rest of the GOP can learn from with respect to reaching across to people who would never vote for a Republican. I think the rest of the party around the country, particularly south of the Mason-Dixon, could learn from that. Yeah. But his own personal selfishness is just is really sticky.
Supposing in this press conference, I don't know what he's going to say, but supposing he comes out and he says, heads are rolling, lots of them. He's firing a raft of people. He says, what happened was a disgrace, and I will personally apologize to the people of New Jersey, those who were messed around with on the traffic, and the mayor of Fort Lee. Would that be enough to resurrect him?
It's not enough, because it speaks to the company he keeps around him. To have a deputy chief of staff that would think that this is okay speaks very poorly of Christie. And to think that he wouldn't know this is going on in his own administration speaks equally as poorly. And I think the GOP would be shooting themselves in the foot.
I think it would help.
She's tough.
She is real tough. I think she's like, you've completely written them off. I think that, listen, I think he's already fired a couple of people, which is something that we didn't see from President Obama, you know, with any of his scandals.
Yeah, 2 people have gone.
Right.
That's true.
And if he came out and he apologized, I mean, this would be the kind of things. And, you know, the idea that sycophants people who love to work for powerful people do almost anything for them. And you know, it's Christie's responsibility to make sure that he keeps his sycophants in line.
I think we should remember one thing. This occurred before the November election. Why on earth would the governor of New Jersey, who was leading by 20 or 30 points, do such a stupid thing to mess up traffic for a mayor of Fort Lee? It just doesn't sound...
Oh, it messes up traffic for everybody, right? Coming in New York.
He wouldn't do that.
Well, it's the theory, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
No, now you're assuming that he knew about it.
I have a hard time believing he didn't, but I will give him the benefit of the doubt and assume, like I did with Obama, that he didn't know about Benghazi and the website, and that's just the old trick.
Why is it conservatives always eat their own? Why is that?
I don't know. We need to stop it.
You are tough. But welcome to New York. You do really well in New York, let me tell you. All right. The IRS scandal is back in the headlines. The latest development? An Obama donor is now leading the investigation into the targeting of Tea Party groups. Could that be a conflict of interest?
Crazy people walking around with blood in their eyes, and all she wants to do is dance, dance, dance. Wild-eyed pistol wavers who ain't afraid to die, and all she wants to do is dance and make romance.
In your home in HD and now available on SiriusXM on channel